should have started recording this before I did any work, so I'm gonna have to kind of backtrack and explain some things I'm doing. But I had a buddy that took over from my godfather building cabinets, and he does fantastic work. But he's new to owning a business, so whereas he knows the operating side of the business, he doesn't know about the marketing side of the business. So I'm gonna help him market, and part of that is that I'm just cleaning up some photos that he took of some of the projects he finished. Now, a really difficult aspect in this particular case of getting photos when you're the cabinet installer is that you oftentimes don't have access for finished projects. So you have to take kind of progress photos instead. And so you might get things like this where, you know, the ovens, the range is all wrapped up, right? Our oven's all wrapped up. And how do we fix that? Or can we fix that? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it's not worth it. I'm going to start by reviewing a couple things that I already did, which is that this one was a very simple edit. Out of the box, the picture wasn't all that bad. One of the things that it needed was parallelism. Even though he's a really good cabinet builder, he is not a good cabinet photographer. So he's taking a lot of shots kind of angled down at this. And so if I were to go back and let's just see if I can't undo this process here. There we go. That's our original shot. So it's kind of askewed, right? It's kind of tilted. It's angled down. We've lost a lot of the details just in, you know, he didn't set up his camera in a way that would shoot a good shot. But a lot of times when we're taking shots like this, we don't need to have our camera set up all that well. We can do a lot in post. So this was not the worst one to deal with. So you can see if I step forward, I just added parallelism. We did that in the camera raw filter, which we'll do that again. So I'll show you that. Keep watching this video and you'll see that. And then I tend to approach these the same way that the current market does, which is in real estate listings is always going to drive your market for photography and standards for photography. And they like to blow out the whites and they like to kind of blow out the details a little bit. I like to try to preserve the details, but I'll still blow out the whites a little bit. So we're kind of, it's not that we're overexposing, we are lifting highlights and we're also lifting shadows. So that's what I did in this shot and a few other tweaks. So this came out pretty good. And then finally, it's really beneficial if you're ever going to build a website to get everything in the same ratio. And then there are some considerations about getting them in a ratio that is set up for like phone screens. So maybe you do a 5:4, maybe you do some Instagram setup here, but here we go. I went 16:9 with these. So this is going to be for his website. And then I can kind of backtrack, which would be a good thing to just leave this in an undo state so that I can maybe do some stuff for phone media as well. So maybe we'll go 5:4 as well and turn this into a couple different shots. So just backtrack one and leave that there. And then this next one is challenging. And let's just do a bunch of undos to get to our original photo state, which is this. And so again, parallelism issue, but we've also got an issue of this client just has a bunch of stuff on their counters. And I'm not sure that this particular picture should be used. There's some times where you do a job and you just shouldn't use that picture. This doesn't necessarily translate well. It's not necessarily a great design. So is it helping your brand? Maybe, maybe not. So fixed parallelism. I didn't spend a lot of time on this one in terms of its processing in the camera raw filter because I didn't like the base product, but I still did a few things to fix this up. So I went and used a bunch of Adobe's Firefly, I think is what they still call it, which is their built-in AI or Gen Fill. And so you can see I highlighted some things and got them to be removed, like the coffee cup, etc. And just a cord on the right-hand side there I just removed, and something around the bottle cap, and then bringing the bottle back in. Excuse me, the cork. And then there's our final again. So might step back and undo the crop, but probably not. I'm not sure that this one's going to even get used, so I didn't spend a ton of time on it. And then this next one was just, what a beautiful kitchen. What a beautiful kitchen. Whoever did the design on this kitchen, really fantastic job. So let's just step back and see what I did here, because this one was worth taking some time on because it's such a showcase piece. So there's the original shot. And so we just immediately, bring it in camera raw, set up the parallelism, set up some filtering, lift the shadows, lift the whites, and then I actually started targeting things. And so I lifted saturation and luminance on green, blue, and orange. And then definitely lifted saturation on green. That made the plant show up in the backyard. That made the stools kind of pop. And then we got our 16:9 crop in there. And then I noticed a few things. We've got a towel on the countertop. We've got a drill on the countertop. There's a knife block. It would be nice if we could get Gen Fill to build that knife block, but it wasn't going to do a good job. So just remove it. And then a hole in the ceiling and some packages on the countertops as well. So got rid of the hole in the ceiling there. Started kind of masking out to try to see if I could get the knife block to Gen. It didn't work out. Firefly did a terrible job on that. So I decided to just get rid of it entirely. And then I used some clone stamp to kind of clone in that backsplash tile. And then, and so you can see the tiles kind of changing the background as I step forward and back here. And then I targeted, let me go back a few so you can see that tile. The tile I'm talking about is right here. So you can just see that changing as I was masking some things with a real soft wide brush, and I think that's okay. And then I got rid of this package, and Gen Fill got rid of this line, but it didn't in their second iteration of the Gen Fill. So I copied the Gen Fill and then masked back in the second generation of it, but I didn't like the second generation's handle, so I masked back to the first generation Gen Fill handle. So there you go. And now we're finally at that point where we can export. And then now we're on to this guy. And for some reason, I can't get adaptive wide angle to fix this countertop. So instead of the adaptive, I'm going to do a puppet warp. And so I need to just have this base layer unlocked. And let's go into, I know this is off the screen. I don't know how to change that, unfortunately, without kind of dragging Photoshop in here so you can see this menu item. But edit menu, puppet warp is what I'm getting into. Okay. So with that, this is what happens. We get all this pinning, we get this grid, right? And so we need to just pin a few spots so that we're not moving those spots. These are going to become stationary. So we want these couple things here to become stationary and not move. So I don't want to move this countertop. Specifically, what I'm trying to do is fix this countertop. So we're going to pin the end of this, and we're going to pin the last section of this that's straight. And then we finally get to pin and drag this countertop up just a little bit, and pin and drag this countertop up just a little bit, and try to just straighten that out a little bit. And that's kind of it. I could have used liquefy to do that. But I think this is close enough. I think that's enough to trick the eye. So we just get this, hit the check mark, and there we go. So yeah, that straightened that countertop in. No idea why that was happening. It seemed like chromatic aberration was kind of messing around with it from the lens of whatever he was using. Who knows? The other thing to note here is that someone did not clean off these. I think someone did not clean these off, or if that's actually the way these are supposed to look, that's pretty wild. I could try a little bit of trickery here, and it would be a lot of work on my part. I think I could try some things, but you know what? That's part of what this video is. Let's try some things out. So I'm just gonna, I'm going to do a little screenshot here, and let's just bring this into Google Lens, upload a file, see if we can't match this. There it is, right? So it's definitely a clear light, right? Which is pretty wild. That's a pretty good look, and we might be able to fake it with this look. There's a couple different approaches I could take here, but mainly I want to get one. I mean, like this, I could fake it with this. Here's how I would fake it with this one, where that glass is pretty clear, or fake it with this one. Let's try this one first. So here's what I'm doing to fake this, okay? I'm going to bring this into Photoshop, paste it, right? We're going to mask this out. Hopefully we just get our object selection tool to figure this out. There we go. So it kind of figured that out for the most part. And say we could hold the Alt key to minus a selection, and it doesn't look like it's going to minus it. So I'm going to Control J that forward, and this is what we're left with, which is okay, you know. And then here's the fake it part is I might be able to get Adobe Gen Fill to just fill this in with no prompt, right? So Gen Fill, bam, let it go, let it do its thing. Gen Fill is going to think that we're trying to erase this from the shot, which means it's going to try to put that cabinet in the background back in place, right? Did a pretty good job. Honestly, it did a very good job, I think. You know, we could kick up sharpness in this if we really needed to, but I don't think so. And then the approach I would take, and again, I think this takes a lot of work, is that we get this scaled appropriately. I think the angle just happens to be right. That's about it. That's about it right there. You know, obviously we're going to fix some of this masking, or I might even go destructive workflow, which is just, I'm going to just erase this, especially if I was using my stylus. I could do this freehand pretty easily. I didn't do the best job there. I'm just going to get it close enough because I don't think this is the approach I'm going to take, but we'll see. And get it close. And then first thing I want to do is I just want to try to mess with layer styles and see if we could do a blend if. And the blend if means that, hey, in this current layer, I want to say if it's white to medium gray, do not show it. And so it is getting rid of the bulb. That's the only kind of issue here, is getting rid of the bulb. And then, you know, if we kind of fade it back, does that improve it? No, not at all. So I didn't get what I needed out of this. So then the next thing you want to look at is, can we do something with its blend modes? Can we do, you know, a screen, right? And can we layer that screen on top of itself and then bring back in just the white reflections, right? Overlays may be interesting. That's actually getting pretty close in hard light, you know. That's almost there. It certainly doesn't look clear, right? So the other thing to try would be, well, and we kind of patched this in. That's the wood that we patched in. What happens if we kind of soft blend it back with opacity masks? And we can see here that our light was the wrong size. Right, the light's more like this. And we can hold control and kind of warp it. So it's a little bit more like that. Yeah, interesting to kind of play with. And then kind of the last thing I think you could do here, well, let's go with the other approach, which is that we found this light where it does have some brown in the background already. It's a very pixelated image, unfortunately. And it's coming from a Facebook feeds, which means, you know, you might search for it for a while, which would be a bummer. So I don't want to do that. So what ends up maybe happening is we might actually end up leaving this all dusty, unfortunately. Let's try it one more time. Let's try this guy here. So I'm going to use the pen tool this time to get real tight on this. We're going to get rid of some of the fuzz. Pen tool is click and drag to get your radius, right? Click and drag to get your radius. And when you get really fast with this tool, it becomes just an invaluable part of the kit in Photoshop. So I think that we just need this top portion. And I don't need to be super accurate with this. I do have some kind of line plugged into this pen tool, which we don't need. We're just going to use the pen tool for selection only. I'm a little rusty with my pen tool. Oops, I wanted that last bit to be a little more arced before we get to the end here. And then we just get to make selection. Make selection. So it's a right click on the path and make selection. And then we're going to end up using that on this guy to just control JM forward. And then we can get rid of the shape and get rid of the layer below. And that leaves us with this. And then what happens when we transform, replicate it into room, into that space. Let's get rid of that other one. Certainly doesn't look dusty, but it's too dark, right? And so can we do a little exposure adjustment just to that piece that we brought in? And it's going to get some blowout here, but yeah, I mean, that does not look like a dusty fixture anymore. That's for sure. Yeah, that actually looks pretty good. Not bad, you know? Mess around with the exposure a little bit more. Could mess around the source image a little bit more. Yeah, it really does not look that bad. Surprised. So you might take the time to actually move this perfectly into place or warp it perfectly into place. All right, looks like it could get a little layer mask on the very bottom end of it. I put a little layer mask on it and get rid of this bottom half. There we go. That looks pretty good. Nice job. All right, pat yourself on the back. You got to remember that part. The next part of this is that we're going to kind of copy this stack forward. So I'm going to just Control G group that. I'm going to Control J to make a copy of it. And I could just hit V and move it over here and warp it into place. Might do a puppet warp, might just do a control warp. Control warp's going to get us half of the way there. Yeah, I mean, that's not bad. Maybe make this one a little more opaque. Maybe not. Could also change its blend mode a little bit, possibly, just to help clean this up. There you go. That actually looks pretty good. Darken was the trick there. Darken or hard light. Let's look at darken again. There's darken or hard light. I like lighter color as well, but it still has that kind of fuzz. I think darken was the one. Yeah, that's the one. And you know, you might pull some saturation out of this. So we could do that. We could throw in a little hue saturation adjustment into this, pull the saturation out a little bit. Yep. And then could also try to pull saturation out of the source image. So this one, you know, definitely taking more time on it. But part of that is that I'm doing it for you guys as the audience. So if I just throw in a little brush here, right? So I just brushed the mask, and now I can make my, and now I can invert that mask and pull the saturation out of just that light fixture. Bam, see that? See it pulling that out? There we go. Now we've softened how yellow that is. I think that's better. I think we'll also do that here. So we got to invert our brush, and there we go. We're pulling that, some of that saturation out of there. Lift it a little bit. There. I think that's looking pretty good. So we got those to look a little less dusty. Not perfect, but certainly better than it was. And we fixed that countertop a little bit, right? Could we figure out what this range is, and could we get rid of the wrapping paper on it? I'm not sure. That'd be a tough one. I think we could get rid of this box. Let's let that roll on the source image. Notice that what happens when you're selecting the source image, which I shouldn't have done actually, is that it's creating a new gen fill layer, and now the gen fill layer came in front of the clipping that's being affected by hue saturation. So we got to re-clip that hue saturation and bring that gen fill up and out of the way or something like that. But yeah, that did a pretty good job. A couple different variations. I think that one's pretty good because we kept the shadow, which I think is perfect. Would be nice if we had some utensils on the counter. I'm not going to even try to do that. That would be very challenging to do. It would take a lot of extra time. You know, if I was doing this for a customer that, and I'm getting hired as a professional service, yeah, I would do that. And I might have a big uphill battle trying to get that countertop covered with some stuff that's typical of a space like this. But I will get rid of these little guys on this countertop. Might as well make it just clean counters all the way. And we'll see what we can get done in the camera raw filter for this. I will maybe throw just a little bit of harebrained effort at that range. I wish I knew what that range was. I might be able to get AI outside of Photoshop to fix that range if I kind of do the clip art approach, or what's called photo bashing. So photo bashing would be this. We're gonna take a little screen clip, just that. I can actually, sorry, I should have gotten this out of the way. Let's try this again. A little screen clip. Let's just start with a another Google image search. And can we even get close to the same, you know, orientation of this, of the original search? Maybe. So there's a Z line, and what's our, and the Z line's definitely not that range hood, but the angle of this picture is good, so we might be able to find something else in associated imagery. Okay, so we're getting there, and we want to find something with just a subtle angle. We gotta go look back at our source image. I don't have a ton of faith in this process, but we'll see. Okay, here we go. This is good. So we can just copy this image, right click copy, come back in here, paste it in, Control T, flip it, you know, to the other direction, and we're gonna get this to warp in place. And it's gonna be challenging. So I'm gonna throw a little opacity on this so we can kind of see through. And let's just hold control while I'm kind of warping and referencing. So there's kind of the corner right there. Need to fix the corner down here. This just takes a pretty trained eye. You can absolutely do this. I'm getting some funny warp on this side. And when you warp like this, as opposed to a puppet warp, you're going to have to go back and fix the other side. It's not just going to stay static. You kind of have to look at both sides, fix one side, come back to the other side, fix it. Another way to do this is the perspective warp. So let's just see what this looks like with a mask. And then I can kind of blend the two together and see what we get. I'm just taking my layer mask, I'm cutting out all this stuff. Cutting out the side of that. We still have to fix the side of it. That's okay. Fix the front burners a little bit. Okay. And what do we know we need next? We definitely need to fit this into the scene in terms of its color balance, in terms of its exposure. So I'm going to bring in a exposure adjustment layer. It's clipped to the layer below. Let's just start by dropping exposure, but really we want to do some camera correction and offset for this. We don't want to screw this guy up too much. And we might not want to affect the existing black sections. So look to below, right? We've lost that stainless look. Right? It just doesn't look stainless at all. So we might keep this in its existing state. It's just too bright though. That just might not be a good fit, but we'll see. So here's what I'm thinking. Let's start with Adobe's Gen. Right, so we'll start with that. We'll just start with a Gen Fill here. And we need just a blank layer or something to select with that. Or just something that's not an adjustment layer is what you need to have selected in your layer stack over here to start that Gen Fill process if you want it on the top. Now we'll see if leaving it as a blank input just tries to get rid of it, because the next thing we'll do is we'll just say that this is a cooktop. Yeah, so try to, I actually don't mind this. That's funny. We could have just changed it to a cooktop, right? I mean, that actually looks really good. We could fix how the drawers are set up, but not bad. That's really funny. Okay, so let's just say that this is a range. I guess that's oven range. And then let's do that generate again. And then after this, I'm gonna hide those layers, send it into Krea AI, and see if Krea can do a job of fixing that range hood. Maybe it does. Maybe it even improves our lights here. So that didn't do a terrible job. Interesting that we're splitting the countertop up. It's not a bad approach either. Could kind of do that and fix whatever the heck this faucet tie-in is and this plate that's in the way. Let's just give it another shot. This got pretty close actually. Try it again. And then other times it just gets way off. Hey, we're getting real close there. All right, let's see what's going on here. So what did it do? It affected this cabinet, but I don't think that that's a problem per se. So let's try to mess with the layer mask on this. You just get to bring this cabinet back just like that, right? So the only thing that's happening is that little patch to fix. And this is a cooktop, so we could take that back, get all our sink back in place. This is getting somewhere very close to what we needed. I didn't notice that little bottle here. It's funny. And yeah, it's not bad. I'm not mad at that. That almost works. Interesting. Let's just fix these couple little areas. And then we also want to give Krea a shot and see what Krea does with this. All right, so that kind of fixed that area, Yeah, I'm really not upset with that. That's pretty good. I'm not sure that I'm going to mess with the range. I might just leave the range the way it is. I really just wanted to do, excuse me, the oven. So let's see what happens when, let's just get rid of this. Let's get everything else back in place. Would have been a better approach there. Let's see what happens when we get rid of little AI range hoods and leave kind of that in. We'll try two ways. So we'll export this. It'll be best one, and then we'll do it with the black as well. Best two. Oops. Let's get my Krea account. Enhancer. Just do exactly this. See if we can't grab something from. That's the test one, and now we'll do test two. I'll come back in just a minute. Now, looking at this, what else do we want to do before we send it to Camera Raw? I don't know that we need to do anything else before Camera Raw. So actually, let's come back and let's just take a look at Krea and just see if one of these finished yet. Well, I hope my buddy's happy with what he sees when I send him these. It'll be nice. If you need a custom cabinet person in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, serving the greater Bay Area, if you need a custom cabinet guy, he's my guy. He is my guy. And he's awesome, and he does fantastic work, and he did such a brilliant job in my house, and I'm so happy with my experiences with him as a builder. So I'd say go check him out. Look at this. Good job, Krea. Man, Krea for the win. I hope Adobe catches up with its Firefly engine, because this just looks so much. But look what it did with these fixtures. It did a fantastic job. Let's take a look at this other version. Got a couple of different variations here. Yeah, it still did a great job here as well. You know, so maybe it's worth us fixing that oven, because if this is what Krea is going to give us, you know, we're going to get good results out of this. Wow, what a great job. Same thing, just great job. Love what it did with, you know, on the ceiling. Yeah, all right, let's go fix the oven. Why not? Worth it now. I've never used it to do, that's not true. I've used it to fix and patch and stuff like that, but I've never used it in quite this same way. So really happy with what I just saw. So really all we're doing now is, let's get to the source image again, and I'm going to throw in another hue saturation layer. You can stack these. It's no problem that we had a previous one here. And I'm going to invert the mask so that it's black, and I'm going to just paint something real quick so we can see it. So invert my brush so that it's white. So I painted just a little white dot right there, and now I should be able to adjust hue, color, etc. And what I think this, I bet this is just a stainless steel deal, so we might just pull the saturation out of it completely and lighten it. And the lightening it is the problem here. So here's the next part. We're going to add an exposure adjustment layer or curves. You could do either. I'm going to go ahead and do exposure. I'm going to drag this mask into the other mask, and I think I get to just link these two. Actually, I didn't need to drag that mask. In fact, we could get rid of both of these masks. So we could select one of these, let's get rid of, what am I trying to do here? I'm going to bring this top level hue saturation down. And I'm going to get rid of this exposure and hue saturation. So I'm going to group our source object here. And is that what I wanted to do? I think so. Let me group it again, actually. Now on top of this, I'm going to add exposure, and I'm going to add hue saturation. And then I want to group these two, and they're just affecting the group below. I didn't need to group the one below, possibly. I'm not even going to think about it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a mask on this. Okay, let's invert the mask, and then let's brush right here. All right, now I get to change exposure first of all. So there we go. This is changing exposure, right? Wherever we painted that little deal, let's see that. And then hue saturation, I'm pulling saturation out. There we go. So now we're affecting both with this one group mask, okay? And so the goal here is I want to lift this so that it's almost as bright. Almost as bright. Maybe not. Maybe it's just going to remain gray. It looks like I don't want to spend too much time on this. So let me just carefully mask this out. We'll just let Krea do its work. We're holding shift makes it so you can draw a straight line. I'm just holding shift here. I'm going to do a little line in between these two so that it disappears, and see that that's two different handles, right? We're going to change that exposure adjustment. It's a little too strong. Get rid of the blue here. There we go. Just knife down, knife over. There we go. One last little touch up here. And we'll just fix that exposure. I think something like that looks pretty good. We're going to get a decent result out of that. And then I just need to select something like this group so that I can lasso this guy here and get rid of him before we send it back to Krea. Same thing. This would be the opportunity if maybe we can get Krea to do something clever with. I got rid of those two, but I forgot this somehow. Or did I? I forgot that. Maybe we can get Krea to put some countertop items on this. Maybe. So we'll get Adobe to throw in something first. There we go. That's looking pretty good. This is almost ready. So let's right here actually see if we can't get Adobe to throw in a kitchen cookbook on stand. And then maybe just some utensils in a jar kind of thing, spices. And let's see, this needs to move stack. What the heck is that? What the heck is that? Kitchen cookbook display, maybe? What the heck? Adobe's Gen Fill is just so unpredictable. It does the weirdest things sometimes. Um, you're almost better just searching something and kind of clip arting it in. So I'm gonna do that. Kitchen, cookbook, display, countertop. And maybe I can get something in my image search and then clip art it in, because that's just so funny. Man. I'll show you what I'm looking for here, which is this right here. That's what we're looking for. Oh, okay, it did a okay job. Different language, I guess. It's okay. It's not perfect. This is more what I'm looking for. And a little automatic selection will get us 90% of the way there, and maybe I'll even throw in the plant. Why not? And J it forward and be left with this to do a little Control T. Maybe if we throw this on the countertop, maybe, just maybe, Krea can figure this out, because that'd be cool. I think that the plant needs to go though. Right. Adobe's Gen Fill, man. It's just a wild card. That's just funny. Oops, what was this? Messing something up. Notice I just darken that exposure, mask it, kind of do this kind of thing. Soft brush would be helpful for this, right? Something like that. And then get back up a little bit. And then the last thing here is just want to make sure that we're not touching the blacks of that. Or let's see. Fade this back. Get some legibility out of that text again. There we go, something like that. We'll see if we can't let that fly. So test 3. Let's see what Krea AI does with this. I'm certainly taking a lot more on this edit than I planned on taking. I thought we were going to move on to the next one, but I don't know. I think this is some of this is pretty compelling. Some use cases you might need to actually spend the time to do this kind of setup, especially if you've got a kitchen where you just can't get access to it. You know, for whatever reason, you're not allowed to go back in and shoot it and do a final shot, or the clients just refuse to get their stuff out of the way and it's not an editorial shot. Whatever your reason might be, there are some times where we got to go process things that we don't have access to, and this would be the tedious task that you have, which is fixing these little problems and making this look like an editorial shot. You can do it. You can learn these Photoshop skills, and certainly had instances where I didn't have access to a project and I needed to come back and get an editorial shot out of it. So, all right, Krea, let's see your magic. Man, what an exciting time to be doing this kind of stuff. It's so much more efficient than it used to be by being able to use this AI stuff. In the past, it would just say, hey, this isn't worth the money, or we're gonna kill ourselves trying to make this job look right. And look at that. I really think that looks pretty good. Yeah, it looks processed, but we might be able to get some of that processing out. So here we go. That's one good download. Wait till you see what we do in Camera Raw. So stick around for that, because this will improve still. Let's see our next version. Next version, we kick the AI strength up. So sometimes I use multiple versions and I'll mask certain parts of it. Okay. I think I like the glass better right here. I do. It added something in the ceiling. That's okay. We can get rid of it. I think I like the cookbook a little bit better. I don't like the range better. The range looks worse. I forgot to get rid of the black range. We don't want the black range. We want the silver range. So I need to do this one more time. This last version did a better job with the range. And did something funny with this light again. The oven looks fantastic, you know, so this is very viable. Let's see. I screwed up and left this dang black in there. There we go. That's the shot we needed. Let's get this back in. Just 4. It'd be great if we could replace the source image and have all the same processing happen so that I don't have to remember which one I like. So I liked AI strength up. And I might kick clarity down a little bit. Okay. And then while we're waiting for this, so AI strength up, and click clarity down just a little bit. And while we're waiting for this, I think I did already download this version, but in case I didn't, let's go ahead and download it. Yeah, we did. And then we just get to drag that on top of our image here. So where is this? Get to drag that on top. And I'll show you what I do next while we're waiting. Because what I'll do next is, and we needed to mask a little area out. We need to get rid of what? This right here? Yeah. That was it, I think. Sometimes I'll come in here and just make sure there's nothing else I need to mask out to the original. Nothing else, nothing else. You know, sometimes you can just brush in to see what might need to get. I kind of like that original. These handles make sense. Yeah, sometimes I'll just brush in to see what changed, right? Not a whole lot. So there we go. Stamp it forward, Control Shift E, Control Shift A to bring us into Camera Raw filter. And this is where I get to do some magic. Now I can try some presets that I have. This is a detune. Look at this. This looks fantastic. That's a detune. 1, 2, 3. So this is meant to kind of battle that clarity level that's in Krea AI. So I'm pulling contrast out and I'm messing around with clarity in the camera raw filter and texture, and boy, that looked nice. Like this, and you gotta like kind of pick up what's happening with this one. There's some parallelism happening, and also there's vignetting happening, and I kind of like it. And so sometimes I just go through these just to take a look and see, you know, what's happening. This is kind of almost looks painterly, blown out. So I like to see what features kind of jump out at me to see what I want to do in case none of these work. And in this case, none of them work for me. So first of all, we're going to just get into this guy right here. And so geometry. So I'm just going to click on auto geometry. That's going to kind of square this up a little bit. Maybe not actually. That did something I didn't like. So vertical needs to be tweaked. I'm looking at this side here. I want that cabinet to be straight up and down. I'm also looking at this here. So that's pretty good. Okay. Now let's get into our manual settings, and I don't want to bring exposure up a little bit. I know that already. I know I probably want to bring contrast down just a hair because we need to make sure that this still looks realistic. Um, Instead of exposure, we could kick highlights up and shadows up. This is going to do something a little different than exposure. This is more of like a real estate shot, like I said before. Also, before I go too far with that, I always want to see what happens when I just kick dehaze down if I've got these things back to normal. And dehaze down, does that lift? And it's kind of lifts on the whole. And if dehaze up, you know, gets rid of any kind of fuzziness in case we've got just pixelation in the shot. Now, considering we're using AI, we shouldn't have that effect. You know, you look at texture's too much, bring it down, it really softens things up. You want real painterly look, you can get all the way down into noise reduction and kick noise reduction all the way up, or color noise reduction all the way up, and you're going to get a real painter look, right? I know that I typically want to bring sharpening up, so we can do some of this stuff ahead of time before we get into all these settings, but let's just see what happens when we lift highlights, we lift shadows a little bit, makes this nice and bright. I might want to bring texture down just a hair. Okay. I liked vignetting on this shot. So there's a little bit of vignetting, just a hair. Vignetting, there we go. Curves adjustment, we can kind of target some things if we wanted to fix some things. Sometimes I mess around with color grading in the shadows. I have a particular style in my own renderings where I bring blue into the shadows. I don't know that it's going to help this shot, but I like just playing around with it, playing around with the highlights to see what happens. Sometimes bringing blue into the highlights can really help a shot. And then you kind of blend back through the blending slider here. And balance sliders, mess around with that. Yeah, I don't know that I want anything happening in the midtones or the highlights in this case. This looks pretty good. I mean, it started off well. I might take some of the saturation out of the cabinets out. So it's just a click and slide. Just subtle. Getting some slowdown on my machine, which means our graphics card's failing me. Yeah, I'm getting some glitching. All right, what else? I don't know. That's looking pretty good, honestly. Sometimes you can target with luminance and get some cool stuff to happen. You know, I say just play around with this stuff. Let me hit OK, or I lose this whole feed here. The only problem with parallelism is if you wanted to kind of blend back to the original shot, especially if we just take away that. This is the original shot, right? If you want to like blend back to it, you need to apply that same filter to this shot as well, and which we can. So let's just go. This is just a history essentially, this top item, whatever it is. So I'm applying that same filter to the source image. Should have been apply previous settings and the dot, 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 and press OK. And I mean, that should be lined up technically, but because we hit auto, maybe it didn't get lined up the same way. So that could be something. Let's go look at Krea's final output here. Our new image. Yeah, it got that still had blue handles on that range, which is too bad. Everything else did a good job. So I'm going to bring that into our source here. Let's see, open enhance test 4. There we go. Oops, dragging it into the wrong thing. Photoshop is struggling right now. There we go. And then I think I want to take this down and take that vignetting. And taking clarity down. Okay. I think this is done. That's about as much as I want to do to it. So the last part about this is cropping it to that 16:9 and just making sure we've got something that makes sense. Now, if you know how to do this, I'm struggling with when you hit crop and you've got a pre-existing ratio and I want to move the crop handle. This has changed. This process has changed. I used to be able to just click and drag the source image. There we go. Almost had to touch the resize handles first. And so I think what's interesting is getting this knob in the shot is it. And so there we go. There's our final shot. You know, when we go back to the original, there's the original. There's our final. Looks sharp. I like it. Yeah, it looks a little fake in the grain here. You know, I know that. I'm okay with it. Let's do it. Most people aren't going to be looking at it that hard for this one. So let's get process 16:9. Yo, cool. Do we keep this rolling? What are we on? We're on almost an hour. You want to see one more? Let's see if I've got one more. Got a couple more, but some of these not be worth doing. Let's see what we got. Let's take a look at this one. This one's kind of cool, except for look at all the dang junk. You know? What a shame, because this is beautiful what they did down here. Really beautiful. This is almost a case for like generative expand, if you will. Oh, okay, so there's the trick. If you didn't know it, let me hit the brush tool first. Get to something else. If I hit crop and you can't move, you click once and now I can move. All right, that's what I did not know at the start of this video. So if we did generative expand, I would probably expand so that we're centering this cabinet. And so we're just going to change this to generative expand and press OK. And because I don't really care about what's happening up above, I really care about what's happening in these drawer faces because they're really cool. So that's what I'm doing there. Yeah, and I don't mind what it did at all. So that's good. And then let's see if we can't do a little bit of cleanup here on this countertop. All this junk. Get your junk out of my editorial shot, dude. You know, I wanted some more bottles up here. Some backlit bottles even. Maybe they should have put a top LED light as well. There we go, that cleaned that up. We don't really know what's happening here, but sure, do we care? Not really. You know, the keen eye is going to pick up that something's off here, but yeah, I don't know that it's that big of a deal. This actually did pretty good. Same thing. Let's just get rid of this a little bit, and then I think that's all we need. Oh, and then maybe the carton over here would have been good too, huh? All right. And had to pause because some music just started playing downstairs. And man, if this microphone picks up even the subtlest little bit of that music, it's going to copyright it, which is such a pain in the butt. And then I'm going to have to give this all away for free. All right, so that did a pretty good job fixing this. Yeah, I'd say so. That one right there. Good. Cool. Stamp it forward. This one's a lot faster edit. Simple shot we're taking. Let's get this automatic, square it up. Beautiful. Look at that. Same kind of thing. I think we'll just lift highlights. Although that doesn't seem to be doing anything. Oh, there we go. Highlights, lift some of the shadows. Let's just kick exposure up as well. And then we'll kick highlights down. This is a good use for dehaze. Dehaze down. Yep. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Yeah, that's not bad. Not the greatest shot. I'm not sure that I would use it. But we'll process it anyway. Sure. We do a crop, we've already got our crop. We have one more. Oh, look at that one. Kind of modern looking. Funny with the little wheel here. It's the shot we want. I almost want to get rid of that little detail up there. Yeah, we could bring this in just a little bit. Now we got rid of it. Okay. Just apply previous settings, the base start point, and then this one's a tough one. This one looks like a pixelated picture. Yeah, this looks like a real low resolution image. Maybe another use case for that. Touch of AI. Let's try it. One more chance with Krea. Let's see what we get. Oh, and we do have one more. Sorry. If you're sticking around this long, you might as well see me do it all. All right, so let's just kick this guy in. I know with all the graining that Krea is going to have a difficult time with that. And then the additional one that I have is, let's see, this guy right here. And so the big money shot here, let's just expand this because we want to make sure that we've got the art fully in place and then the built-ins are what we're looking for here. Here we get that full art piece in there. Oops, didn't mean it. See what it figures out for generative expand. What did this do? Anything good? Yeah, I mean, it just got rid of pixelation, cleaned this image up quite a bit. Yeah, I don't mind that. This is interesting, the expand on this one. Oh, this one's pretty good. This one's pretty good. Funny. I have access to this, so I might be able to reshoot this, especially because, you know, we've got blown out here, but I am curious what happens when you send this to Krea. Why not? We're just beating up the AI this time. It's fascinating. It's like it's the same joy I had when I first started rendering is the same joy I'm getting out of seeing what these AI enhancers can do. Because man, sometimes they're just really doing a great job. Other times they're just, you know, frustrating as all heck. So, and then this other image, which we can open up. I don't even think I need to mask anything out, so we'll just open it directly. Just this guy right here. And I could just try some filters on this, some pre-done filters, I think. You know, that's dramatic. Like the cinematic one, just brought in some warmer tones. Just have to take the blue out of the shot. That's, let's see, CN13. My encoder is just dying. Graphics card's getting beat up. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think I like CN12, and we get into the manual adjustments, and we pull that blue out of the shot. Computer is dying a miserable death right now. I'm targeting saturation and pulling the blue out of here. There we go. And that's done. Hopefully my audio is still coming in while that was all lagging. So here's our process 16.9. And let's go check that Krea one more time. Let's see what it did with this bedroom. Craziness did it do? Yeah, you know, it added some drawers where there were none. And then this is clarity. That's what's happening here. Clarity setting. And that clarity setting should be turned way down. But other things, it did kind of a cool job on. I think that's it. I think this was a good working session. Hopefully you got some tricks out of this process for just processing some of these architectural shots. So leave some comments. Let me know if you have questions, especially if I was going too fast on something, if you were wondering what I was clicking, what I was adding, why I did something. Let me know in the comments. Thanks.